7 months pregnant, with my baby. Choi Jae-hyul said the words slowly, like he was trying to make them real. His hand finally touched Yolanda's belly, and he felt the baby kick against his palm. His eyes widened with something close to wonder. "It's really real," he whispered. "You've been carrying my child all this time, going through this alone, and I had no idea." For a moment, the dangerous Korean-Mafia boss looked lost, almost broken. "I didn't tell you because you made it clear I meant nothing to you," Yolanda said, her voice cracking despite her determination to stay strong. "So why would you care about our baby?" The question hung between them in the pulsing lights of the VIP room, 7 months of secrets and hurt finally exposed. And neither of them knew what would happen next. Before we dive into this story, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode of Yolanda and Jae-hyul's emotional journey. This series has twists, betrayals, and secrets that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that notification bell because you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Now, let's begin. The bass thundered through the VIP section of Eclipse, Seoul's most exclusive nightclub, where crystal chandeliers caught the strobing lights and cast rainbow shadows across marble floors. Yolanda James moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her black dress carefully chosen to hide what she'd been concealing for 7 months now. Her hand instinctively went to her belly as she felt the baby kick, a reminder of the secret she carried and the man she'd been avoiding since that night. That one reckless, passionate, unforgettable night. She'd been so careful. Coming in through the back entrance. Taking shifts when she knew he'd be in meetings. Keeping her growing belly hidden behind strategic styling and oversized blazers. Just 2 more weeks and she'd have enough saved to disappear back to America to raise her baby far away from the cold, beautiful man who'd made her feel alive for one night and then thrown her away like she meant nothing. But tonight, her luck ran out. "You are 7 months pregnant with my child and working in the club?" The voice cut through the music like a blade. Deep, controlled, deadly quiet. Yolanda's blood turned to ice. She didn't need to turn around to know who stood behind her. She'd heard that voice in her dreams for months, sometimes tender, often cold, always haunting. Choi Jae-hyul. A hand gripped her wrist, gentle but unyielding. She had no choice but to turn and face him. He stood there in a black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary, his dark eyes blazing with something between fury and fear. His gaze dropped to her belly, and she watched his jaw clench, a muscle ticking beneath his perfect skin. "Let go of me, Mr. Choi." She kept her voice steady, even as her heart hammered. "I have work to do. My office. Now." Each word was precisely spoken, carefully controlled. "I don't take orders from you anymore." She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened just slightly. His next words stopped her cold. "I can have you fired and blacklisted from every job in Seoul within an hour. Or you can walk into that office and explain why you've been hiding my child from me." The threat hung between them. Yolanda looked around at the crowded VIP section, at the curious glances already turning their way. She had 2 choices, make a scene that would get her fired anyway, or face him. She'd never been one to run from a fight. "Fine. But you're going to hear things you don't want to hear." His office was exactly as she remembered. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering Seoul skyline. Minimalist furniture that screamed wealth and control. A massive desk made of dark wood where papers were organized with military precision. And there, on the corner of that desk, a framed photo that made her breath catch. A young Korean woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Jae-hyul locked the door behind them and leaned against it, arms crossed. For a long moment, he just looked at her, really looked at her, and she lifted her chin, refusing to show weakness. "When were you planning to tell me?" His voice was softer now, but no less intense. "Never." The word came out clear and strong. "That night meant nothing to you. You made that abundantly clear the next morning when you could barely look at me before telling me to leave." She watched him flinch, but pressed on. "I don't need your pity or your money, Mr. Choi. I've been taking care of us just fine." "Us." He repeated the word like it was foreign. "There's an us now." A child. My child. My baby, she corrected, her hand moving protectively to her belly. Mine. I've been taking care of this pregnancy alone for 7 months. Doctor's appointments alone. Morning sickness alone. Every single moment alone. This baby knows my voice, my heartbeat, my love. You're just the man who got me pregnant and then pretended I didn't exist. The words hit him like physical blows. She could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, the way his hands curled into fists at his sides. I thought it was best, he said finally. That night, what happened between us, it was a mistake. Oh, I know it was a mistake. Her laugh was bitter. You made sure I understood that. So why do you suddenly care now? Because that's my heir you're carrying. His control cracked, voice rising. My blood. A Choi. And you've been working 12-hour shifts on your feet while 7 months pregnant? What if something had happened? What if you'd fallen, or someone had bumped into you, or... But I didn't. Because I'm stronger than you think. Stronger than you ever gave me credit for. Clearly. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect? Regret? But that doesn't change the fact that you're carrying my child. That changes everything. Yolanda watched as he pulled out his phone, making calls in rapid Korean. She caught enough words to understand what was happening. Her apartment. Her job. Her entire life was being rearranged with a few phone calls. Fury burned in her chest, hot and bright. You can't just control my life. He looked up at her, phone still pressed to his ear. Watch me. Within an hour, it was done. Her apartment lease mysteriously terminated. Her belongings being packed and moved by a team of professionals. A security detail assigned to her. A doctor's appointment scheduled for tomorrow morning at Seoul's most prestigious private hospital. Her life, completely upended. You had no right, she said when he finally hung up. I have every right. That child is a Choi, whether you like it or not. And Choi's don't let their blood grow up in one-room apartments with mothers working themselves to death. So what's your plan? Lock me up? Control me? Turn me into some kept woman who does what she's told? My plan is to make sure you and that baby are safe and healthy. My plan is to give my child the life they deserve. What about what I deserve? Her voice cracked slightly, and she hated herself for showing weakness. I had a life, a plan. I was going to go back to America, raise my baby around my family, give them love and stability. Now you've destroyed all of that with a few phone calls. Jae-hyul stepped closer, and she caught the scent of his cologne, expensive and subtly spiced. It brought back memories of that night, of his hands on her skin, of the way he'd whispered her name like a prayer. I'm giving you a better life. A penthouse apartment. The best medical care. Security. Everything you and the baby need. Everything except freedom. Everything except choice. You can choose to accept my help gracefully, or you can fight me and lose. Those are your choices, Yolanda. She wanted to scream. To rage. To tell him exactly what she thought of his arrogant assumptions. But she was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, and suddenly aware of how precarious her situation had become. Without her job, without her apartment, she had nothing. He'd made sure of that. Fine, she said finally. I'll stay at your penthouse. Temporarily. Until I figure out my next move. But understand this, Mr. Choi. I make my own decisions about my baby's future. I'm not some helpless girl you can control and manipulate. I'll use your resources to make sure my baby is healthy and safe, but the moment you try to take my child from me or turn me into something I'm not, I will fight you with everything I have. And you'll find out just how fierce a mother's love can be. For the first time since this conversation started, his lips almost quirked into a smile. Almost. I don't doubt that for a second. The penthouse was obscene in its luxury. Marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the Han River. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Yolanda stood in the entryway, feeling small and out of place, her second-hand dress and worn shoes a stark contrast to all this opulence. "The guest room is yours," Jahiel said, his voice carefully neutral. "It has its own bathroom. I've arranged for maternity clothes to be delivered tomorrow. The kitchen is fully stocked. Don't leave the penthouse without security. My driver will take you anywhere you need to go. Am I a guest or a prisoner? You're the mother of my child. That makes you important." Important. She tasted the word and found it lacking. Not valued. Not respected. Just important. Like a valuable asset you need to protect. He said nothing, which was answer enough. "There's something else you should know," he said finally. "My mother arrives from Busan tomorrow morning. She's traditional, powerful, and very protective of the family reputation. This situation with you, it's not what she would have chosen for me. So I'm a situation now." "How flattering. I'm trying to prepare you. My mother is not like American mothers. She doesn't do warm welcomes or acceptance speeches. She's going to see you as a threat, a complication, possibly even a gold digger trying to trap her son." Yolanda laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. "Your mother doesn't scare me, Mr. Choi. I've dealt with people who didn't want me around my whole life. I've faced racism, discrimination, closed doors, and cold shoulders. I learned a long time ago that the only person's approval I need is my own. Your mother can think whatever she wants. I know who I am and what I'm worth." For a moment, genuine emotion flickered across his usually impassive face. "Then you don't know my mother." After he left, Yolanda explored her new prison disguised as luxury. The guest room was bigger than her entire apartment had been. The bathroom had heated floors and a soaking tub large enough to swim in. The closet was empty, waiting to be filled with clothes she hadn't chosen and didn't want. She caught sight of herself in the full-length mirror. 7 months pregnant, still in her club uniform, makeup smudged from the stress of the evening. She looked tired. Scared. Alone. But she wasn't alone. She placed both hands on her belly and felt her baby kick in response. "It's okay, little one," she whispered. "Mama's going to figure this out. I don't know how yet, but I promise you, we're going to be okay. I'm going to make sure you grow up loved and strong and brave. And nobody, not even your daddy with all his money and power, is going to take you from me or turn you into something you're not. You're a James. And Jameses don't break. We bend, we adapt, we survive, but we never, ever break." The baby kicked again, as if in agreement. Yolanda turned away from the mirror and walked to the window, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there was the life she'd been building, the plans she'd been following, the future she'd imagined. All of it gone now, destroyed by the reappearance of the one man she'd been trying to forget. But maybe that was okay. Maybe she'd been thinking too small. Maybe instead of running, it was time to stand her ground. Time to show Choi Jae-hyul and his entire family exactly what happened when they underestimated Yolanda James. Tomorrow his mother would arrive. Tomorrow the Real battle would begin. Tomorrow she'd meet the woman who, according to Jae-hyul's warning, would try to break her spirit and crush her will. Yolanda smiled, and there was steel in it. Let her try. Yolanda woke to the sound of voices speaking rapid Korean outside her bedroom door. She checked her phone. 6:30 in the morning. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with everything that had happened, her baby doing somersaults inside her as if sensing her anxiety. The voices grew louder. Then her door opened without a knock. 3 women entered like an invasion force. Expensive suits, perfectly styled hair, carrying garment bags and makeup cases. They spoke to her in Korean, gesturing at her hair, her face, her clothes still wrinkled from yesterday. "I'm sorry, what?" Yolanda sat up in bed, pulling the covers around her. The lead woman switched to heavily accented English. "Madam Choi send us. Make you presentable for meeting." "Presentable?" Yolanda felt anger flare hot in her chest. I'm perfectly presentable as I am. Madam Choi say natural hair too wild. Makeup wrong. Clothes not suitable. Yolanda stood, all 5'7" of her, and looked each woman in the eye. You can tell Madam Choi that I'll meet her as myself, or not at all. My hair is beautiful exactly as it is. My face doesn't need fixing. And I'll wear what I'm comfortable wearing. Now please leave my room. The women looked at each other nervously, speaking in rapid Korean. Finally, they bowed slightly and left, carrying their rejected supplies with them. Yolanda took her time getting ready. She washed her face, moisturized her rich brown skin until it glowed. She picked out her own clothes from the few things that had been brought over, a simple but elegant navy dress that accommodated her belly. She wore her natural hair in a high puff, proud and unapologetic. She put on minimal makeup, just enough to highlight her features. If Madam Choi wanted to meet her, she'd meet the real Yolanda James. Not some manufactured version designed to be more palatable. When she emerged from her room an hour later, she found Jae-hyul waiting in the living room. He looked up from his phone and froze, his eyes traveling over her slowly. Something flickered in his gaze, something that made her pulse quicken despite her anger at him. They said you refused their help, he said carefully. I refused their insults disguised as help. There's a difference. My mother is going to be difficult enough without you deliberately antagonizing her. I'm not antagonizing anyone. I'm simply refusing to change who I am to make her comfortable. If that's a problem, then the problem is hers, not mine. Before he could respond, the elevator chimed. The doors opened, and Yolanda got her first look at Madam Choi Sun-hee. She was smaller than Yolanda expected, barely 5'2", but she carried herself like a queen. Her hanbok was clearly custom-made, deep purple silk with intricate embroidery. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, not a strand out of place. Diamond earrings caught the morning light. But it was her eyes that struck Yolanda most. Cold. Assessing. Utterly without warmth. 2 steps behind her came an older man carrying her bags and a younger Korean woman who could only be described as flawless. Designer dress, perfect makeup, the kind of beauty that looked expensive to maintain. Madam Choi entered the penthouse like she owned it. Which, Yolanda supposed, she probably did. She stopped 3 feet from Yolanda and looked her up and down, a slow, deliberate examination that was clearly meant to intimidate. Then she spoke in rapid Korean to Jae-hyul, her tone sharp and disapproving. Yolanda caught a few words. Club girl. Foreigner. Inappropriate. Jae-hyul responded in Korean, his voice tight with tension. Madam Choi turned to Yolanda and switched to English, her accent thick, but her words perfectly chosen. So this is the club girl carrying my grandchild. How very convenient this pregnancy is for you. Mother, Jae-hyul started, but Madam Choi held up one perfectly manicured hand, silencing him. I asked the girl a question. Does she have a tongue, or did she trap my son with other talents? The insult hung in the air. The young Korean woman behind Madam Choi smirked slightly. Yolanda felt fury burn through her veins, but she kept her voice calm and level. My name is Yolanda James, Mrs. Choi. And I didn't trap anyone. Your son is a grown man who made his own choices. If you have questions about that night, I suggest you ask him. Madam Choi's eyes narrowed. Bold. But boldness does not make you suitable for my family. What is your education? Your family background? I have a degree in hospitality management from Howard University. My parents are hardworking people who put me through college while working 3 jobs. I'm not ashamed of where I come from. Working class. Madam Choi said it like a disease. And now you work in a club. Tell me, Miss James, what exactly were your duties at my son's establishment? The implication was clear and disgusting. Yolanda felt her hands curl into fists at her sides, but she kept her voice steady. I coordinate VIP events and manage high-profile clients. I have a degree in the field and 3 years of experience. Perhaps you should ask your son about my professional qualifications instead of making assumptions based on your own prejudices. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. No one, apparently, spoke to Madame Choi like that. You dare speak to me this way in my son's home? With all due respect, Mrs. Choi, this is your son's home. Not yours. And he invited me here. If you don't like how I speak, you're free to leave. Jae-hyul made a sound like he was choking. The young Korean woman's mouth fell open. Even Madame Choi looked momentarily stunned. Then the matriarch's face hardened into something cruel. You think you're clever. You think carrying that baby gives you power. But you're wrong. I've dealt with girls like you before. Girls who thought they could use a pregnancy to climb above their station. They all learned the same lesson eventually. Something in her tone made ice shoot down Yolanda's spine. This wasn't just a threat about social standing. This was something darker. What lesson was that? Yolanda asked quietly. That in the Choi family, I decide who stays and who goes. I decide who is worthy and who is not. And I have never, ever lost. Before Yolanda could respond, the elevator chimed again. A young man emerged, mid-20s, devastatingly handsome in that same cold way Jae-hyul was handsome. He had the same dark eyes, the same sharp cheekbones, but where Jae-hyul's arrogance was controlled, this man's was careless and cruel. Well. His English was perfect, probably educated abroad. The famous Yolanda. Hyung, you've been keeping secrets. Though 7 months is quite the secret to keep. Jaemin. Jae-hyul's voice held a warning that his brother completely ignored. Choi Jaemin walked right up to Yolanda, invading her personal space deliberately. I have to admit, I'm impressed. My brother is usually so careful, so controlled. You must have been very persuasive to get past his defenses. The innuendo was clear. Yolanda stood her ground, refusing to step back. Your brother is a grown man who made his own decisions. If you have questions about his judgment, take it up with him. Oh, I'm not questioning his taste. You're beautiful, I'll give you that. Exotic. I can see the appeal. He reached out as if to touch her face. Yolanda grabbed his wrist before he could make contact. Touch me without permission and you'll regret it. For a second, genuine surprise flickered across Jaemin's face. Then he laughed, pulling his hand back. She's got fire, Hyung. Maybe you should have held on to this one instead of that boring Chinese girl you used to. Jaemin. Jae-hyul's voice cracked like a whip. Enough. But Yolanda had caught it. Chinese girl. She glanced at the photo on Jae-hyul's desk, visible through his open office door. The young woman with kind eyes. Sit, Madame Choi commanded, gesturing to the dining table. We have much to discuss about this situation. The meal that followed was torture. A traditional Korean breakfast that Yolanda barely touched, her stomach churning with anxiety. Madame Choi interrogated her like a prosecutor. Every answer Yolanda gave was met with disapproval or disdain. You've met his family? Contempt dripped from every word. Not yet. This all happened very quickly. Of course not. You didn't have time to research which family members to charm, which to manipulate. I'm not manipulating anyone. Then why are you here? If not for money, if not for status, why didn't you quietly disappear? Have the baby somewhere else? Why come to my son now? I didn't come to him. He found me. He's the one who brought me here, who threatened me if I didn't comply. Ask him. All eyes turned to Jae-hyul. His jaw was tight, a muscle ticking beneath his skin. I did what was necessary to protect my child. By trapping this girl? By forcing her to live here? Madame Choi's voice was silk over steel. How noble of you. It was a trap, Yolanda realized. Whatever she said, Madame Choi would twist it. If Yolanda wanted to be here, she was a gold digger. If she didn't want to be here, she was an ungrateful burden. There was no winning. The younger Korean woman, who'd been introduced as Park Mi-kyung, finally spoke. Her English was flawless, her voice honey-sweet. "Mrs. Choi, perhaps we should discuss this privately? I'm sure Miss James would be more comfortable resting. Pregnancy must be so exhausting." The fake concern was worse than outright hostility. Yolanda met Mi-kyung's eyes and saw calculation there, and something else. Jealousy. "I'm fine, thank you," Yolanda said. "I'd prefer to be present for any discussions about my future and my child's future." "Your child?" Madame Choi's laugh was sharp. "That child is a Choi. Its future was decided the moment it was conceived. The only question is what role you'll play in that future. I'm the baby's mother. That's my role. Many children are raised by people other than their birth mothers. Nannies. Relatives. Adoptive parents. What matters is what's best for the child, not what's best for you." The threat was crystal clear. They could take her baby. Would take her baby if she didn't comply with their wishes. Yolanda pushed back from the table and stood, her hands protectively on her belly. "Let me make something very clear to all of you. I'm not some scared girl you can intimidate or manipulate. I'm not going to disappear because it's inconvenient for you. I'm not going to let you take my child or control my life. This baby is mine. And I will fight every single one of you before I let you take what's mine." She turned to Jae-hyul, who'd been silent through most of this nightmare. "You brought me here. You said you wanted to protect your child. Well, protecting your child means protecting me. So either you stand up to your family and make it clear that I'm not going anywhere, or I walk out of here right now and you'll never see either of us again. Your choice." The silence that followed was deafening. Madame Choi looked furious. Jaemin looked amused. Mi-kyung looked calculating. And Jae-hyul looked torn, caught between the family who'd raised him and the woman carrying his child. Finally, he stood. "Yolanda stays. She's under my protection. Anyone who threatens her or the baby answers to me." Jae-hyul, his mother's voice was ice. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm protecting my child and its mother. That's non-negotiable." Madame Choi stood slowly, gathering her dignity around her like armor. "Very well. But understand this, my son. You've chosen a very difficult path. And this girl," she looked at Yolanda with pure venom, "she has no idea what she's walked into. The last foreign woman who thought she could join this family learned a very painful lesson. I wonder if you'll be smarter than she was." With that cryptic threat, Madame Choi swept toward the elevator, Mi-kyung and the assistant following in her wake. But before the elevator doors closed, Mi-kyung looked back at Yolanda and mouthed two words in Korean. Yolanda had been studying the language secretly, preparing for life with a half-Korean baby. She understood perfectly. "You'll regret." After they left, Yolanda's legs finally gave out. She sank onto the couch, her hands shaking. Jae-hyul moved toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. "Don't. Just, don't. My mother is difficult, but she'll come around. Your mother threatened me. Multiple times. And that woman, Mi-kyung. Who is she?" Jae-hyul's face closed off. "Someone from my past. It doesn't matter. Everything matters when I'm trying to protect my baby from your family. That photo on your desk. The Chinese girl your brother mentioned. And now your mother talking about another foreign woman who'd learned a lesson. What happened to her? It's not your concern. It's absolutely my concern. If your family has a history of threatening women, of making them disappear, I need to know." "Her name was Ji-woo," Jae-hyul said finally, his voice hollow. "She was someone I cared about. 5 years ago, she left. My mother said she took money and disappeared. I never saw her again. Your mother said she left. But you don't believe that, do you?" The look in his eyes was answer enough. Pain. Guilt. And something darker. Suspicion. What really happened to Jiwoo? Yolanda asked softly. I don't know. And that's what terrifies me. Before Yolanda could respond, she felt a sudden wave of nausea. The nausea hit her like a freight train. One moment she was standing in the living room, watching the elevator doors close on Madame Choi's retreating figure, and the next her stomach was churning violently. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to breathe through it, but the room started spinning. Yolanda? Jaehyul's voice sounded far away, concerned. She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. She was too busy trying not to collapse. Her legs felt weak, her head fuzzy. The baby kicked frantically inside her, as if sensing something was wrong. I need to sit down, she managed to say, stumbling toward the couch. Jaehyul caught her before she fell, his strong arms supporting her weight. What's wrong? Is it the baby? I don't know. I just feel wrong. Dizzy. Nauseous. He helped her to the couch, his face tight with worry. I'm calling the doctor. No, wait. Yolanda took deep breaths, trying to calm the churning in her stomach. Maybe it's just stress. Your mother isn't exactly easy to deal with. This is more than stress. You look pale. He was already pulling out his phone. The private doctor arrived within 20 minutes, a distinguished older Korean man with gentle hands and careful eyes. He examined Yolanda thoroughly, checking her blood pressure, listening to the baby's heartbeat, asking detailed questions about what she'd eaten and drunk that morning. The baby's heartbeat is strong, Dr. Kim said in excellent English. But your blood pressure is elevated. Have you experienced any cramping? Any bleeding? No, just the nausea and dizziness. And you ate breakfast this morning? Barely. A few bites. I wasn't very hungry. Dr. Kim nodded, making notes. Stress can certainly cause these symptoms, especially in late pregnancy. But I'd like to run some blood tests, just to be safe. I'll have a nurse come by this afternoon to draw blood. After the doctor left, Jaehyul sat beside her on the couch, his expression unreadable. This is my fault. I shouldn't have forced you to meet my mother so soon. You couldn't exactly hide me forever. Yolanda leaned back against the cushions, feeling exhausted. Besides, better to know what I'm dealing with up front. What you're dealing with is a family that will do anything to protect its interests. My mother wasn't exaggerating when she said she always wins. Everyone loses eventually. He looked at her sharply. Is that what you think this is? A game you can win? No. I think this is survival. And I'm very good at surviving. The rest of the day passed in a blur. The nurse came and drew blood. Yolanda tried to rest, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Madame Choi's cold stare, heard Mi-kyung's whispered warning about Jiwoo, felt the weight of Jaemin's calculating gaze. By evening, she felt better physically, but the unease remained. Something about this morning nagged at her, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. She was in her room, sitting by the window and watching the sun set over Seoul, when there was a soft knock on her door. Come in. An elderly Korean woman entered, carrying fresh towels. She had kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She'd been moving quietly through the penthouse all day, cleaning, organizing, invisible in the way good household staff learn to be. I'm Mrs. Kong, the woman said in careful English. Head housekeeper. I bring you clean towels. Thank you, Mrs. Kang. Yolanda smiled at her. You don't have to knock. This is your workplace. Mrs. Kang's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected kindness. She placed the towels in the bathroom, then hesitated at the door. Miss James, she said quietly. You feel better now? This morning, you were very sick. Yes, much better. Thank you for asking. Mrs. Kong nodded, but she didn't leave. Instead, she glanced toward the hallway, as if checking to make sure they were alone. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. The tea. The tea that was in your room this morning. Did you drink it? Yolanda's breath caught. Yes. Why? What kind of tea was it? Do you remember? I don't know. It was already there when I woke up. I assumed someone from the kitchen left it. Mrs. Kang's face went pale. No one from kitchen leave tea. Kitchen staff not come until 7 o'clock. That tea was there at 6:30. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The tea that had been waiting in her room. The nausea that hit shortly after breakfast. The way Mrs. Kang was looking at her now, with fear and something like pity. Someone put something in that tea, didn't they? Yolanda's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Mrs. Kang looked torn, clearly wanting to say more but afraid of the consequences. I should not speak. Not my place. Mrs. Kang, please. If someone is trying to hurt me or my baby, I need to know. The older woman's eyes filled with tears. I work for Choi family for 30 years. I see many things. Bad things. Things that make me ashamed. She stepped closer, her voice dropping even lower. 5 years ago, another woman stay in this penthouse. Foreign woman, like you. Chinese and Korean. Young master loved her very much. Jiwoo, Yolanda whispered. Mrs. Kang nodded. You know about her? Only that she disappeared. That Madam Choi said she took money and left. That is lie. Mrs. Kang's voice was fierce despite its quietness. Jiwoo would never leave young master. She loved him. And she was pregnant. 3 months pregnant when she disappeared. The room seemed to tilt. Pregnant? Yes. Just like you. Madam Choi very angry when she find out. Say foreign baby cannot be Choi heir. Say Jiwoo must go away. But Jiwoo refused to leave. Say she love young master, want to have his baby, want to be part of family. What happened to her? Mrs. Kang wiped her eyes. One morning, Jiwoo not feeling well. Very sick, like you this morning. Doctor come, say maybe stress. But that night, Jiwoo have terrible pain. Bleeding. She lose the baby. Yolanda's hands went protectively to her belly. Oh God. After that, Jiwoo very sad. Stay in room, not eat, not sleep. Then one day, she just, gone. Madam Choi say she take money and leave Korea. But I clean Jiwoo's room after. Her passport still in drawer. Her clothes still in closet. Her phone, broken, in trash can. She not leave on her own. You think Madam Choi made her disappear? I think Madam Choi do many things to protect family name. I think she do anything. Mrs. Kang looked at Yolanda with desperate intensity. You must be careful, Miss James. Very careful. Watch everything you eat, everything you drink. Trust no one in this house. Not even you? I am old woman with no power. I cannot protect you. I can only warn you. She moved toward the door, then paused. That tea this morning. It smelled like regular tea, but underneath, something else. Something bitter. Herbs that can make pregnant women sick. Herbs that can cause problems. Someone tried to make me lose my baby. It wasn't a question. Mrs. Kang didn't confirm or deny, but the look in her eyes was answer enough. Be careful, Miss James. And do not drink anything that is already prepared. Only what you make yourself or what young master gives you directly. After Mrs. Kang left, Yolanda sat in stunned silence. Someone in this house had tried to poison her. Someone had tried to make her lose her baby, just like Jiwoo had lost hers 5 years ago. The question was, who? Madam Choi was the obvious suspect. She'd made her feelings clear. She didn't want Yolanda in the family, didn't want a half-black grandchild, didn't want her perfect son tied to a club girl. But would she really try to harm her own grandchild? Unless she didn't see it as her grandchild. Unless in her mind, this baby was just an obstacle to be removed. Then there was Mi-kyung, the ex-fiancé who clearly still wanted Jae-hyul. If Yolanda lost the baby, there'd be no reason for her to stay. Jae-hyul would be free to marry someone more suitable. Someone Korean. Someone approved by the family. And Jaemin, the younger brother who'd looked at her with such calculating interest. What did he have to gain from her losing the baby? Unless it was about inheritance, about keeping the family line pure, about not wanting to share power with a half-foreign nephew or niece. Or it could be someone else entirely. Someone she hadn't even considered yet. Yolanda stood and walked to her bathroom, looking at the empty teacup still sitting on the counter where she'd left it this morning. She picked it up carefully, studying it. There was a faint residue at the bottom, slightly darker than regular tea leaves. She needed proof. Real proof, not just suspicions and warnings from a frightened housekeeper. She wrapped the cup carefully in a towel and hid it in the back of her closet. Then she went in search of Jae-hyul. She found him in his home office, working on his laptop. He looked up when she entered, and something in her expression made him close the computer immediately. "What's wrong? I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did Jiwoo lose her baby before she disappeared?" His face went white. "How do you know about that?" "So it's true." He stood, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Who told you? Does it matter? Is it true?" "Yes." The word seemed to cost him. She was 3 months pregnant. She started getting sick, having pain. The doctors said it was a miscarriage. Natural causes. These things happen. Natural causes. Yolanda's voice was flat. "And you believed that? What else was I supposed to believe? That your mother poisoned her, just like someone tried to poison me this morning?" The silence that followed was deafening. Jae-hyul stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. "That's insane. My mother would never." "Wouldn't she? She told me herself that she always wins, that she decides who stays and who goes. Mrs. Kong told me Jiwoo refused to leave even after losing the baby. Then suddenly, mysteriously, she disappeared without taking her passport or her phone. Does that sound natural to you? Mrs. Kong shouldn't be gossiping about family business. Mrs. Kong is trying to save my life. Someone put something in my tea this morning. That's why I got sick. That's why Dr. Kim is running blood tests. Someone in this house is trying to make me lose this baby, and you're defending them." "I'm not defending anyone. I'm trying to think rationally instead of jumping to paranoid conclusions." "Paranoid?" Yolanda's voice rose. "Your mother threatened me to my face this morning. Your ex-fiancé told me to ask about Jiwoo, like it was some kind of warning. Your brother looks at me like I'm a problem to be solved. And you think I'm being paranoid?" Jae-hyul slammed his hand on the desk. "Because if I believe you, then I have to believe my mother is capable of murder. I have to believe she killed Jiwoo's baby and then made Jiwoo disappear. I have to believe that I stood by and let it happen because I was too blind or too scared to see the truth." His voice broke on the last word. Yolanda saw the anguish in his eyes, the guilt that had been eating at him for 5 years. "I loved her," he said quietly. "I loved Jiwoo, and I failed to protect her. I let my mother convince me that Jiwoo had left me for money, that everything between us had been a lie. I let myself believe it because the alternative was too terrible to face. And now history is repeating itself." Yolanda's voice was softer now. "Another foreign woman carrying your baby. Another chance for your mother to eliminate a threat to the family's precious image." "No." Jae-hyul looked at her with fierce determination. "This time is different. This time I know what to watch for. This time I won't let her hurt you." "How?" "You can't watch me 24 hours a day. You can't taste every piece of food, check every drink. And you can't know who's working with your mother. Is it Mi-kyung? Is it Jaemin? Is it some staff member you trust? We don't know who the enemy is. Then we find out. He pulled out his phone. I'm having security cameras installed. Everywhere except bathrooms and bedrooms. Every hallway, every common area. If someone tries something again, we'll have proof. Your mother won't like that. I don't care what my mother likes. You're right about one thing, I failed Jiwoo. I won't fail you. I won't fail our child. Yolanda wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this time would be different, that he'd choose her over his family's expectations. But words were easy. Actions were what mattered. I saved the teacup, she said. The one from this morning. Maybe Dr. Kim can test it, see what was in it. Good. I'll make sure he does. Jae-hyul stepped closer. From now on, you don't eat or drink anything unless I've checked it first. You don't go anywhere in this penthouse alone. And if anyone at all, makes you uncomfortable or seems suspicious, you tell me immediately. That's going to make life difficult. I'd rather you be safe and inconvenienced than dead. The bluntness of the statement hung between them. Dead. It wasn't an exaggeration. If someone had succeeded in making her miscarry, and if that someone was as ruthless as Mrs. Kong implied, they might not stop at just harming the baby. A woman who'd already made one inconvenient pregnant girlfriend disappear wouldn't hesitate to make another one vanish. I'm not going to hide, Yolanda said firmly. I'm not going to act scared or defeated. That's what they want. They want me to feel so threatened that I leave on my own. Then what are you going to do? A slow smile spread across Yolanda's face, and there was no warmth in it. I'm going to go on the offensive. Your family thinks I'm weak, that I'm an easy target. They think a little poison and some threats will send me running. But they're wrong. I'm going to figure out who tried to hurt my baby, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of family the Choice really are. That's dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous. At least this way, I'm not a passive victim waiting for the next attack. Jae-hyul studied her for a long moment, and she saw something like admiration flicker in his eyes. You really aren't like anyone I've ever met. Good. Because the women you've met before ended up dead or disappeared. Maybe it's time for a different kind of woman in your life. One who fights back. That night, Yolanda lay in bed, her hands protectively over her belly, feeling her baby kick and squirm. Tomorrow Dr. Kim would have the blood test results. Tomorrow the security cameras would be installed. Tomorrow she'd start paying closer attention to everyone in this house, watching for signs of guilt, for opportunities to gather evidence. But tonight, she made a promise to her unborn child and to the ghost of Jiwoo who'd been silenced 5 years ago. I'm going to find out the truth, she whispered. I'm going to expose whoever did this. And I'm going to make sure no one ever underestimates me again. The baby kicked in response, as if saying, I believe you, Mama. Yolanda smiled in the darkness. Let the Choi family come with their poison and their threats. She was ready for war. Dr. Kim arrived the next morning with the blood test results. Yolanda sat on the couch with Jae-hyul beside her, both of them tense as the doctor opened his tablet. The good news is that the baby is perfectly healthy, Dr. Kim said with a reassuring smile. Strong heartbeat, normal development, no signs of distress. And the bad news? Yolanda asked. Dr. Kim's smile faded. We found traces of an herbal compound in your blood. Specifically, a combination of Dong Quai and pennyroyal. Both are known to stimulate uterine contractions and have been used historically to induce miscarriage. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Yolanda felt Jae-hyul go rigid beside her. Someone deliberately tried to harm my baby, she said, her voice eerily calm. The dosage wasn't high enough to cause immediate danger, Dr. Kim continued carefully. But if you'd consumed more, or if this had been repeated over several days, the consequences could have been severe. Premature labor, placental abruption, or yes, miscarriage. Can you test the teacup? Jae-hyul's voice was deadly quiet. The one she drank from yesterday morning? Of course. If the same compounds are present, that would confirm the source. After Dr. Kim left with the carefully wrapped teacup, Yolanda and Jae-hyul sat in silence. The security camera installation team was working throughout the penthouse, drilling holes, running wires, setting up monitors in Jae-hyul's office. "It's real," Yolanda said finally. "Someone actually tried to kill my baby. Our baby." Jae-hyul's jaw was tight. "And when I find out who did this, they're going to wish they'd never been born. We need to be smart about this. Whoever did it knows we're suspicious now. They're not going to try again the same way. That's what the cameras are for. Cameras won't catch everything. We need more information. We need to understand what really happened to Ji-woo." Jae-hyul looked at her sharply. "Why are you so focused on Ji-woo?" "Because her story is my story. Foreign woman, pregnant, unwanted by your mother. She lost her baby under mysterious circumstances and then disappeared. If I don't figure out what happened to her, I could be next. I won't let that happen. You couldn't stop it from happening to her." The words were harsh but true. "You loved her, and you still couldn't protect her. What makes you think you can protect me?" The pain in his eyes was raw. "Because this time I know what I'm dealing with. This time I'm not blind to the danger." "Then help me investigate. There must be records, evidence, something that explains what really happened to her." Jae-hyul was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to his office, gesturing for her to follow. He unlocked a drawer in his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "After Ji-woo disappeared, I hired private investigators. They found almost nothing. It was like she'd been erased from existence. But they did compile this, everything they could find about her last few weeks." Yolanda took the folder with trembling hands. Inside were photographs, documents, timeline notes. She saw Ji-woo's face in picture after picture. She was beautiful, with delicate features and intelligent eyes. In the early photos, she was smiling, happy. But as the timeline progressed, she looked increasingly worried, then ill, then haunted. "These photos were taken by the investigators?" Yolanda asked. "No. Most of them are from my personal collection. The investigators added notes based on interviews with people who knew her." Yolanda read through the timeline carefully. Ji-woo had gotten pregnant in January, 5 years ago. She'd told Jae-hyul in February. Madam Choi had found out in late February and demanded Ji-woo leave. Ji-woo had refused. In early March, she'd started feeling ill. By mid-March, she'd lost the baby. And in early April, she'd vanished without a trace. Who was taking care of Ji-woo after she lost the baby? Yolanda asked. "She stayed here in the penthouse. I hired a private nurse to monitor her health. My mother insisted on it, said she wanted to make sure Ji-woo was properly cared for." "Your mother insisted?" Yolanda's voice was sharp. "The same mother who wanted Ji-woo gone suddenly wanted to take care of her?" Jae-hyul's face went pale. "I thought she was trying to make amends. That maybe losing the baby had softened her heart. Or maybe she wanted control over Ji-woo's care." "Who was this nurse?" "Her name was Park Eun-ji. She came highly recommended by my mother's personal physician. Do you see what's happening here? Your mother controlled Ji-woo's medical care, controlled who had access to her, controlled the narrative about what happened. And then Ji-woo conveniently disappeared. You think the nurse was involved?" "I think everyone your mother handpicked is suspect." Yolanda flipped through more pages. "Is this nurse still working for your family?" "I don't know. I haven't thought about her in years. We need to find her. She might know something about what really happened. Or she might be complicit in whatever happened and won't talk. Then we make her talk." Yolanda's voice was steel. "I'm not Ji-woo. I'm not going to disappear quietly. And I'm going to find out the truth, even if it destroys your family in the process." Before Jae-hyul could respond, his phone rang. He answered in Korean, his expression growing darker with each word. When he hung up, he looked at Yolanda with resignation. "My mother is coming over." She wants to discuss the security cameras and address the disrespectful atmosphere in my home. Good. Let her come. I have some questions for her. Yolanda, that's not a good idea. If she suspects you know something. She already suspects I know something. That's why she tried to poison me. But now I have proof, and she doesn't know that yet. Let's see how she reacts when I push back. This is dangerous. Everything about being in your family is dangerous. At least this way, I'm not sitting around waiting to be attacked again. Madam Choi arrived 30 minutes later, and she did not come alone. Mi-kyung was with her, looking polished and perfect in a cream-colored suit. And behind them came Jae-min, who'd apparently been summoned for this family meeting. Security cameras, Madam Choi said without preamble, speaking in English for Yolanda's benefit. In your home. Like we are criminals to be watched. Someone poisoned Yolanda, Jae-hyul said flatly. Someone in this family tried to harm my child. The cameras are staying. Madam Choi's expression didn't change, but Yolanda caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Surprise? Concern? Guilt? Poisoned? Mi-kyung gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. That's terrible. Who would do such a thing? That's what we're trying to figure out, Yolanda said, watching Mi-kyung's face carefully. The shock looked genuine, but Yolanda had learned that in this family, everyone was an excellent actor. Perhaps the girl is lying, Jae-min suggested casually. Trying to create drama, make herself seem like a victim to gain sympathy. Dr. Kim confirmed it, Jae-hyul said coldly. There were herbs in her blood that can cause miscarriage. Someone deliberately tried to harm her. Dr. Kim can be mistaken, Madam Choi said dismissively. These American girls, they take all sorts of supplements and herbs, then blame others when there are consequences. I haven't taken any herbs or supplements, Yolanda said firmly. The only thing I consumed yesterday morning was tea that was left in my room before the kitchen staff arrived. Tea that someone placed there deliberately. The staff has access to all rooms, Madam Choi said. Perhaps one of them is responsible. I will have them all questioned and dismissed if necessary. How convenient, Yolanda said. Blame the staff. Just like you blamed Jiwoo for taking money and leaving, when everyone knows she didn't leave voluntarily. The temperature in the room dropped 30 degrees. Madam Choi's face went rigid with fury. Mi-kyung looked shocked. Jaemin's eyes gleamed with interest, like he was watching an entertaining show. You dare speak that name in my presence? Madam Choi's voice was pure venom. Why shouldn't I? Jiwoo was pregnant with your son's child. She lost that baby under mysterious circumstances. Then she disappeared without her passport, without her phone, without any trace. Just like you threatened would happen to me. I made no such threat. You told me the last foreign woman who tried to join this family learned a painful lesson. You told me you always win, that you decide who stays and who goes. What am I supposed to think that means? Madam Choi stood, drawing herself up to her full height, which was still a foot shorter than Yolanda. But her presence filled the room. You know nothing about Jiwoo or what happened to her. You are a foolish girl playing with fire. Then enlighten me. Yolanda stood too, refusing to be intimidated. Tell me what really happened to her. Tell me why she lost her baby. Tell me where she went. She left because she was a gold digger who realized the money wasn't worth the trouble. She took what she could and disappeared back to China. Without her passport? Without her clothes? Without saying goodbye to anyone? Yolanda shook her head. That's not what happened, and we both know it. Mother, Jae-hyul said quietly. Where is Jiwoo? Madam Choi spun to face her son. You believe this girl over your own mother? This club worker who trapped you with a pregnancy? I believe the evidence. I believe the medical reports. I believe that someone in this family tried to poison Yolanda, just like someone might have poisoned Jiwoo 5 years ago. That's preposterous. Is it? Jae-hyul pulled out his phone and showed her a document. Dr. Kim tested Yolanda's blood. Dong K and pennyroyal. Herbs used to induce miscarriage. Someone gave them to her deliberately. For the first time, Madame Choi looked genuinely rattled. She glanced at Mi-kyung, then at Jae-min, then back at Jae-hyul. I don't know anything about this. But you know about Ji-woo, don't you? Yolanda pressed. You know what really happened to her baby. You know where she went. I know that she was weak. She couldn't handle the pressure of being in this family, so she took the easy way out. What easy way out? What does that mean? Madame Choi's face went pale. She'd said too much, revealed more than she intended. Mother, Jae-hyul's voice was deadly quiet. What did you do? I did what was necessary to protect this family. That Chinese girl was going to ruin everything. She was unsuitable, inappropriate, and she refused to leave even after losing the baby. She was going to cling to you forever, drag you down, destroy your reputation. So you made her disappear. It wasn't a question. I gave her a choice. I offered her money to leave quietly. She refused. So I made arrangements for her to go back to China. To start a new life there. Arrangements, Yolanda repeated. What kind of arrangements? That's none of your concern. It's absolutely my concern. You're threatening to do the same thing to me. Mrs. Kong appeared in the doorway, her face ashen. Madam Choi, please. The young lady asks only for truth. You. Madam Choi turned on the housekeeper like a viper. You've been filling her head with lies. I tell her only what I see. What I know. Mrs. Kang's voice trembled, but she held her ground. I see Ji-woo get sick after drinking tea. Same tea that someone leave in her room every morning. I see her lose baby. I see her cry and cry. Then I see nurse that you hire give her injection, say it for pain. But after injection, Ji-woo sleep and sleep. And when she wake up, she confused. Not remember things. Not know where she is. That's enough. Madame Choi shrieked. But Mrs. Kong continued, tears streaming down her face. Last time I see Ji-woo, she in car with two men I not know. She look scared. She look at me like she want help. But I too afraid. I do nothing. And I never see her again. The silence that followed was absolute. Everyone in the room stared at Madame Choi, who stood there with her carefully constructed mask finally cracking. You had her drugged, Jae-hyul said, his voice hollow. You had her taken away. I did what I had to do. She was going to destroy you. Where is she, mother? Where did you send her? I don't know. I paid the men to take her back to China, to make sure she never came back. What they did with her after that is not my concern. Yolanda felt sick. You paid men to kidnap her. You don't even know if she's alive. She's alive, Madame Choi said, but she didn't sound certain. She must be. I gave them money for her, for a new start. I'm not a monster. Yes, you are, Jae-hyul said quietly. You're exactly a monster. You poisoned Ji-woo to make her lose our baby. You drugged her. You had her kidnapped and taken to another country. And you've been lying to me about it for 5 years. I did it for you. To protect you. You did it for yourself. For your precious family reputation. For your control. He looked at his mother like he was seeing her for the first time. And now you're trying to do the same thing to Yolanda. I have done nothing to this girl. Then who poisoned her? Yolanda demanded. If not you, then who? Madame Choi looked at Mi-kyung and Jae-min, her expression calculating. Perhaps someone else in this family has their own reasons for wanting this pregnancy to end. Mi-kyung's face went red. You're trying to blame me? I would never. You want Jae-hyul back, Madame Choi said coldly. You've made that very clear. And a baby ties him to this woman forever. I didn't poison anyone. What about you? Yolanda turned to Jaemin. What do you get out of my baby disappearing? Jaemin's smirk faded. Nothing. I don't care about your baby one way or another. Liar, Madam Choi said sharply. You care very much. If Jae-hyul has an heir, you lose your position as backup. You lose your claim to the family business. You're the one who didn't want this baby. Jaemin shot back. Don't try to pin your crimes on me. The family turned on each other like wolves, each one accusing the others, defending themselves, revealing secrets they'd kept hidden. Yolanda watched it all with grim satisfaction. She'd done what she set out to do. She'd made them turn on each other. But she still didn't know who had actually poisoned her. That night, after the shouting had died down and everyone had left, Yolanda sat in Jae-hyul's office watching the security footage from the cameras that had been installed. Jae-hyul sat beside her, looking exhausted and broken. I'm sorry, he said quietly. About all of this. About my family. About Jiwoo. About everything. Sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't tell us if she's alive or dead. I'm going to find her. I'm going to hire the best investigators in the world. I'm going to find out what happened to her. Good. She deserves that. She deserves justice. They sat in silence, watching the empty hallways on the monitors. Then Yolanda saw something that made her lean forward. Wait. Go back. Jae-hyul rewound the footage. Mi-kyung arrived 30 minutes later, perfectly styled as always, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who thought she'd gotten away with murder. How is Yolanda feeling? She asked sweetly. Did the tea help? Actually, we haven't opened it yet, Jae-hyul said. Yolanda wanted to thank you in person first. He led Mi-kyung to the living room, where Yolanda was waiting on the couch. The tin of tea sat on the coffee table between them. Mi-kyung, Yolanda said, her voice calm. Thank you so much for this thoughtful gift. Tell me, where did you get this tea? It's from a traditional Korean herbalist. Very reputable. My mother swears by their products for women's health. Is that so? Yolanda picked up the tin, examining it. What herbs are in it, exactly? Oh, I'm not sure. Traditional Korean herbs. All natural and safe for pregnancy. All natural. Yolanda's smile was sharp. Like Dong K and pennyroyal? Mi-kyung's face went pale. I don't know what those are. They're herbs that cause miscarriage. They're in this tea. In very high concentrations. Yolanda set the tin down carefully. High enough to kill me and my baby. That's impossible. The herbalist would never. We had it tested, Jae-hyul said coldly. Dr. Kim confirmed it. This tea is poison. Mi-kyung stood abruptly. Then someone tampered with it. The herbalist must have made a mistake. I would never intentionally give Yolanda something harmful. Really? Yolanda stood too, moving closer. Because you're the one wearing the ring from the security footage. The same ring you used to slip into my room 2 days ago and leave poison tea there too. I don't know what you're talking about. The emerald ring. Yolanda pointed at Mi-kyung's left hand, where the distinctive green stone caught the light. The one Madame Choi gave you. The one you're wearing right now. The same one the person on camera was wearing when they poisoned me the first time. Mi-kyung's hand flew behind her back, hiding the ring. That doesn't prove anything. Lots of people have emerald rings. Not like that one, Jae-hyul said. That was my grandmother's ring. It's one of a kind. And you're wearing it in the footage we have of someone entering Yolanda's room and leaving poison. The mask finally cracked. Mi-kyung's perfect composure shattered, and Yolanda saw raw desperation underneath. You don't understand, Mi-kyung said, her voice breaking. I've waited 5 years for you, Jae-hyul. 5 years. I've stayed single, stayed faithful, stayed ready for when you finally realized we belong together. And then she appears, she gestured at Yolanda with contempt, and suddenly you're willing to throw away everything we had? For a club worker carrying your bastard? We had nothing, Jae-hyul said coldly. Our engagement was arranged by our families. I never loved you. But you could have. In time, you would have. We were perfect together, same background, same culture, same world. But then she trapped you with a pregnancy, just like that Chinese girl tried to do. Jiwoo didn't trap me. I loved her. And look what happened to her. Mikyung's laugh was bitter and slightly unhinged. She didn't belong in your world either. She learned that lesson. I thought Yolanda would be smart enough to learn it too, but apparently not. So you tried to kill her, Yolanda said. You tried to kill my baby. I tried to save Jae-hyul from making the same mistake twice. You don't belong here. You're going to ruin his life, destroy his reputation, drag him down to your level. My level? Yolanda's voice was ice. At least I'm not a murderer. I'm not a murderer. The baby wasn't even born yet. It doesn't count. The casual cruelty of the statement hung in the air. Yolanda felt rage burn through her, hot and pure. My baby's life doesn't count? My child, who kicks and moves and has a heartbeat, doesn't count. It's not about the baby, Mikyung said desperately. It's about saving Jae-hyul. About protecting his future. About making sure he ends up with someone worthy of him. And you think you're worthy? You, who tried to poison a pregnant woman twice. You, who just admitted on camera, Yolanda gestured to the security cameras, that you deliberately tried to harm my baby? Mikyung's eyes went wide as she realized her mistake. She'd confessed. On camera. With witnesses. I didn't mean. You tricked me. I gave you enough rope to hang yourself, Yolanda said. And you did exactly that. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Mikyung tried to run, but Jae-hyul blocked the elevator. She tried to recant her confession, claiming she'd been coerced, but the recording was clear. She'd admitted everything. As the police led her away in handcuffs, Mikyung looked back at Jae-hyul with tears streaming down her face. I did it for us, she said brokenly. I did it because I love you. That's not love, Jae-hyul said quietly. That's obsession. And it's over. After the police left, Yolanda collapsed onto the couch, feeling simultaneously relieved and exhausted. It was over. The person who'd been trying to hurt her baby was caught. She was safe. But then Mrs. Kong appeared in the doorway, her face troubled. Miss James, Mr. Choi. I must speak with you. What is it, Mrs. Kang? The elderly woman wrung her hands nervously. Miss Mikyung, she act alone? What do you mean? The first time Miss Jiwoo get sick, 5 years ago. Miss Mikyung not around then. She and young master already break up. So who poisoned Jiwoo? The question hit like a bomb. Yolanda and Jae-hyul looked at each other with dawning horror. Mikyung had poisoned Yolanda. But if Mikyung hadn't been around 5 years ago, then someone else had poisoned Jiwoo. Mother, Jae-hyul said slowly. It was my mother. Mrs. Kong nodded miserably. I see Madam Choi make tea for Jiwoo every morning. Say it traditional Korean tea for pregnant women. Good for baby. But after Jiwoo drink, she always gets sick. And then, baby gone. Why didn't you say something? Yolanda asked. Who believe old housekeeper over Madam Choi? And I afraid. Afraid to lose job. Afraid of what Madam Choi do to me. Tears rolled down Mrs. Kang's wrinkled face. I so ashamed. I watch Jiwoo suffer and do nothing. I let her lose baby and say nothing. And then she disappear and I still say nothing. For 5 years, I live with this shame. It's not your fault, Jae-hyul said gently. You're not responsible for my mother's crimes. But now I speak truth. I testify if needed. No more innocent women should suffer because I too scared to speak. After Mrs. Kong left, Yolanda and Jae-hyul sat in heavy silence. Mi-kyung was arrested, but the real villain, Madam Choi, was still free. Still in power. Still dangerous. We need to confront her, Yolanda said. We need to make her pay for what she did to Ji-woo. She's my mother. She's a murderer. She killed Ji-woo's baby. She had Ji-woo kidnapped. And she would have done the same to me if Mi-kyung hadn't gotten to me first. I know. Jae-hyul's voice was hollow. I've known for a while now, deep down. I just didn't want to believe it. Then it's time to stop protecting her. It's time to choose your mother's reputation or justice for Ji-woo. Jae-hyul looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Mother, he said in Korean. We need to talk. Come to the penthouse. Now. 1 hour later, Madam Choi arrived. She walked in with her usual regal bearing, but Yolanda noticed the tension in her shoulders, the wariness in her eyes. She knew something was wrong. Jae-hyul, what is this about? I heard the police were here. Did something happen? Mi-kyung was arrested, Jae-hyul said flatly. For attempting to poison Yolanda. Twice. Madam Choi's face showed what looked like genuine shock. Mi-kyung? But why would she? Because she's obsessed with me. Because she wanted Yolanda gone so we could be together. She confessed everything. I see. Madam Choi sat down carefully. Well, that's very troubling. I'm glad she was caught. Are you? Yolanda asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you and Mi-kyung had the same goal. Get rid of the pregnant foreign woman who doesn't belong. I never attempted to harm you. No, you just threatened me, intimidated me, and made it very clear you wanted me gone. Mi-kyung just took it a step further than you did. I've done nothing illegal. What about 5 years ago? Jae-hyul's voice was quiet but deadly. What about Ji-woo? Madam Choi went very still. What about her? Mrs. Kong told us everything. How you made tea for Ji-woo every morning. How Ji-woo got sick after drinking it. How she lost the baby after weeks of your care. That's a lie. That old woman is senile. She's willing to testify. She's willing to tell the police exactly what she saw 5 years ago. Her word against mine. A housekeeper against the matriarch of the Choi family. Who do you think they'll believe? Me, Jae-hyul said. Because I believe her. Because everything she said makes sense. Because I've spent 5 years knowing, deep down, that you did something terrible to Ji-woo, and I was too afraid to face it. Madam Choi's mask finally cracked. You would testify against your own mother? You murdered my child. Ji-woo's child. You poisoned her, made her lose the baby, then had her kidnapped and taken to China. And for 5 years, you've let me believe she abandoned me for money. I did what was necessary. That girl was going to ruin you. So you killed my baby and destroyed the woman I loved. She would have dragged you down. Her child would have been an embarrassment, a stain on our family name. And what about this baby? Yolanda's hand went protectively to her belly. What about my child? Would you have poisoned me too if Mi-kyung hadn't gotten there first? The silence that followed was damning. Madam Choi didn't deny it. She simply lifted her chin and met their eyes with cold defiance. I protect this family. That's my duty. That's what I've always done. Then you're fired from that duty, Jae-hyul said. Effective immediately. You're no longer welcome in my home. You're no longer part of my life. And if you ever come near Yolanda or my child again, I will make sure you face criminal charges for what you did to Ji-woo. You can't cut me out. I'm your mother. You're a monster wearing my mother's face. And I'm done protecting you. Madam Choi stood, gathering the remnants of her dignity. You'll regret this. When that baby is born and you see what a mistake you've made, when that girl shows her true colors, you'll regret choosing her over your family. She is my family now, Jae-hyul said quietly. She and our child. You're just the woman who taught me exactly who I don't want to be. After Madame Choi left, the penthouse felt lighter somehow, like a dark cloud had been lifted. Yolanda sat down, feeling emotionally drained but also triumphant. It's really over, she said. Mi-kyung is in jail. Your mother is out of our lives. We're safe. Are we? Jae-hyul sat beside her. My mother still has power, still has resources. She could make our lives very difficult. Let her try. I'm not afraid of her anymore. She's just a bitter old woman who lost. And Jiwoo? Jae-hyul's voice was heavy with guilt. We still don't know if she's alive, where she is, if she's okay. Then we find her. We hire investigators. We search China. We don't stop until we know what happened to her. And if she's dead? Then we make sure your mother pays for it. We make sure Jiwoo gets justice, even if it's 5 years late. Jae-hyul took Yolanda's hand, and for the first time since they'd met, the touch felt right. Not forced, not obligatory, but genuine. I don't deserve you, he said. No, you don't. But you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to. And maybe that's enough. That night, as Yolanda lay in bed with her hand on her belly, she felt her baby kick strongly. She was safe now. Her child was safe. The threats had been neutralized, the enemies defeated. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't stop thinking about Jiwoo. About a woman who'd been in her exact position 5 years ago, who'd loved the same man, carried his child, faced the same family. A woman who'd lost everything. I'll find you, Yolanda whispered into the darkness. Wherever you are, whatever happened to you, I'll make sure your story is told. I'll make sure you get justice. I promise. And Yolanda James always kept her promises. 3 weeks passed in relative peace. Mi-kyung was awaiting trial, Madame Choi kept her distance, and Yolanda finally allowed herself to breathe. She was 8 months pregnant now, her belly impossibly round, the baby's movements strong and constant. For the first time since moving into the penthouse, she felt something like hope. One evening, after a quiet dinner together, Jae-hyul suggested they spend time in the library. It was a beautiful room Yolanda had barely explored, lined floor to ceiling with books in Korean, English, and other languages. Leather chairs sat by tall windows overlooking the city, and the warm lighting made everything feel intimate and safe. I thought we could read together, Jae-hyul said, almost shyly. Something normal. Something that doesn't involve hospitals or family drama. Yolanda smiled, touched by the gesture. I'd like that. They browsed the shelves separately, Yolanda running her fingers along leather spines, reading titles in languages she didn't understand. She finally selected a collection of Korean folktales that had English translations and settled into one of the large chairs. Jae-hyul was across the room, reaching for a book on a higher shelf. As he pulled it free, something fell from behind the row of books, fluttering to the floor like a dying bird. Papers, yellowed with age, scattered at his feet. Yolanda watched him bend to pick them up, saw his expression change from curiosity to confusion to something like horror. His face went completely white. Jae-hyul? What is it? He didn't answer. He just stood there, staring at the papers in his hands, his body rigid. Yolanda set down her book and crossed to him. What did you find? He handed her the papers without a word. They were medical documents, old ones, the paper brittle and faded. But the hospital letterhead was clear, Seoul National University Hospital. And the name on the documents was Choi Jae-hyul. Yolanda's English wasn't perfect for medical terminology, but she understood enough. Date, 25 years ago, when Jae-hyul would have been 10 years old. Diagnosis, severe trauma to the pelvic region resulting in bilateral damage to the vas deferens. Prognosis, patient unlikely to achieve natural fertility. Recommend follow-up in adolescence for fertility preservation options. I don't understand, Yolanda said slowly. This says you were injured as a child. That you are infertile. The word came out strangled. This says I'm infertile. That I have been since I was 10 years old. His eyes dropped to her belly, huge and unmistakable, then back to her face. The doubt in his gaze cut deeper than any knife. The same thing happened to Jiwoo 5 years ago. Medical records. Accusations. Doubt. And then she disappeared. Now it's happening to Yolanda. Is this Madam Choi's playbook for destroying any woman Jaehyul loves? And will Yolanda figure out the truth before it's too late? Episode 2 drops tomorrow. Subscribe so you don't miss the shocking revelations.